Welcome to Mastering Your World Through Frequencies. In this episode, there's an introduction, an interview, and most importantly, at the end, a group frequency calibration where the frequency work happens and change is catalyzed. Enjoy.
Hi everyone, this is Cheong, and I'm here with my co-host Tia. People have always been fascinated with the unseen and the mystical. There are countless stories and myths of the unseen realms, from gods to guides with powers and abilities to beings that want to cause us harm. Is there any truth to these stories? This is a huge topic, and there's no way we can cover everything in one podcast episode. So we'll just be dipping our toe into this huge and fascinating realm of the mystical. And after the discussion, we get to the most important part of this episode. The group frequency calibration at the end is where the frequency work happens and where change actually occurs. So be sure to listen to that. Without releasing distortion patterns targeted by the GFC, the change you want will be more difficult to attain because you haven't addressed the root of the issue. So let's get started.
So Karen, I've been getting more interested in kind of the unseen world, and was just wondering your take on that. It's kind of a big topic, but what's your take on those things we don't see?
Yeah. So a lot of people, people have been fascinated by the unseen world for as long as there have been humans, I feel like, right? That's why people do ceremony. That's why people, not only the only reason they do ceremony, but some people do ceremony, to access the unseen, to ask for their help, to ask for guidance, to ask for healing, all that sort of thing. So, and it's, even something as simple as like Ouija boards when we were little kids, like we always like, ooh, what's gonna happen? So it's like fascinating for us. And, for a lot of people, they're like, is it really true? Are those things, do they exist, those things? And are they really real? And so what I will say is, okay, the amount that we can perceive with our physical eyes of the light spectrum is very, very narrow. Okay, so you can only see a certain amount of stuff because your eyes can only perceive a certain bandwidth in the light spectrum. Yeah. But obviously, there is ultraviolet and there is infrared that you cannot perceive with your physical eyes, but they definitely exist. And there's much more. So just because you can't see it or perceive it doesn't mean it's not there. It just means that you physically can't perceive it. Okay, so that said, as you mentioned, this is a huge topic, right? So we're going to very loosely today touch on a whole bunch of different little things that probably will be of interest to a number of you, and we'll go deeper into some subjects if there's interest in it. Okay, so for me, it's funny. When I was a little kid, I could perceive things that most people could not, and I was always told it was my imagination. But now, being who I am and with the abilities that I have, it wasn't my imagination. I was actually seeing things that most people can't perceive. So, and they were very real to me, and they were very scary because a lot of that stuff is kind of dark. Okay, so we're going to talk about, and everyone, because there's not much known about it, people tend to think of them as all one kind of thing, but they're often different things, but we just don't know that much about it, so we kind of lump things together. Yeah. And what I'll say also is that, to me, because I perceive on frequency level, everything is a frequency pattern, okay? It doesn't matter if it's disembodied, embodied, doesn't really matter. It's just a frequency pattern.
Even if it's an object?
Yeah. So an object has a frequency pattern. It's very dense.
Oh, okay.
But it's not animated in the same way. Does that make sense? It has a pattern, but it's not animated. Okay. And it has, and like humans, because we're embodied, have a different frequency pattern than an animal, even though, do you know what I mean? They're like embodied too. They're
and
just
plants.
And plants. Yeah, they're all different. We just have different frequency signatures.
Okay. And so same with the unseen.
Same with the unseen.
Okay.
So for example, people will talk about ghosts.
Yes.
Okay. So ghosts is a pretty common thing for people to perceive. Meaning it's not like you've heard ghost stories. People tell them. People have experiences with ghosts. When Chris was a little guy, meaning a little boy, he used to see ghosts and stuff like that. I was terrified of ghosts. Okay. Probably because I could see different things and it scared the heck out of me. And so I was always like, I don't want to see them. La 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 la. I don't want to see them because they're scary.
It's scary.
Yeah. And okay. So here's the thing, and there's a whole topic on the dead, right? So if you're curious about the dead, there's a whole Mastering Your World Through Frequencies episode called Demystifying the Dead. So if you're curious about that, really that's a good way to get into what is the dead. Okay. Ghosts are the dead that are on the lower end of the frequency bandwidth. Okay, why? Depending on who you are and depending on how you died, you start to move upon death out of what I call the human or the lower realm. Okay, you start to move up in your frequency resonance. Okay, so how high you can go upon death really depends on how high your frequency resonance was when you were alive, and if you were awakened before you died, even if it's a split second. Okay, that will change your options in terms of where you can go when you're dead. When you perceive a ghost, it's somebody who's dead who's very dense. Okay, they haven't actually moved up very far. That's why we can perceive them. Does that make sense? They can come into the human realm so that we, with our senses, which are, awesome, but limited, can perceive them. So that means their resonance is much lower. They're like the dead who haven't really moved up in their resonance. They're still lingering in the lower realms.
Like they're trapped here?
Some of them some of them don't know they're dead.
Oh yeah, we did talk about this. Yeah. Maybe we won't get too into it.
But some of them don't know that they're dead. Some of them died suddenly.
Yes.
There's a whole bunch of different
reasons.
There's
a whole topic.
Yeah. So in any case, when you perceive a ghost, oftentimes it's because they're in a place that's familiar to them and they don't realize they're dead or they don't know how to get out. So if it's a house, they lived in that house.
Yeah.
Right? So they're there and they think, oh, I'm still living here and what the hell are these people doing here? You know what I mean? That type of thing.
Yeah.
They don't understand why people can't hear them and they're in their space.
Oh, that sounds horrible.
Yeah, it's pretty horrible actually. So actually we just had a recent experience with this. So we were just at this event at the Relationship with the One, and we stayed a couple of extra days. Chris and I stayed a few days with a friend just to explore Colorado and to hike and, just have a little downtime. And we had rented an Airbnb. And when I saw the Airbnb, and I was like, I didn't really pay attention to it too much, but I was like, there's something about this house. But I didn't think about it because we were in a rush and all that sort of stuff. Mm. And we arrived there in the middle of the night, and I was like, there's something off about this house. So anyway, but we're tired. It's you know what I mean? We just did an event. We've been driving all day. We get there. So anyway, we're in bed, and it's kind of like I'm slightly on edge, but I don't really know why.
Yeah.
Okay. And for me, just so you all know, I'm very fortunate. Like I can perceive on frequency on frequency level, but I have to tune into things in order to perceive them. Because I have to tap into them. Some people are very sensitive. There's so much information around us on frequency level. I'm thankful that I'm not that sensitive because they can't turn it off. It's like they're bombarded with all of this
and
stuff.
You're like, if I don't want to tune in, I won't.
So it's like I'm not aware of it because I'm not tapping into it. It's like I haven't engaged
like
that sense.
Choice.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, it's awesome. And it means that I can function in the world because some people are overwhelmed by it because they're so sensitive, right? They're bombarded by all this information. Okay. So anyway, I'm in my human self, right? We're in bed. We're very tired. And because it's late at night. And I'm doing my little breath work because I do Wim Hof breathing before I sleep. It brings me into my body, helps me relax. And then, okay, so now I settle into bed. And Chris is on my left and I'm on my right. And I'm on his right. And then all of a sudden, we're falling to sleep. You're just on that spit. And all of a sudden we hear a loud exhale. And we're both like, what the hell was that, right? And it was to my right. So I knew it wasn't Chris because there's nothing on my right? So I'm like, ah!
Oh
so I am so I curse, right? I'm like, WTF! Right? I'm like, was that you? I'm pretty sure it wasn't you. And Chris is like, no, I thought that was you, but I'm pretty sure it wasn't you. And I'm like,
my God.
And then I'm like, okay, all right. No, I was like, no. I was like, okay, no, you got it. You've got it. Now, luckily, I have certain abilities, but I had to clear it. But it's interesting because on the physical level, in the presence of somebody dead, your body will go into response. So your heart will go, your physiology will go into fright.
Yeah.
Because it's in the presence of something that has a very high death frequency. It's a dead person, right? And they're in the physical realm. So your body has this response. So it's funny, it was not funny at the time. So at the time, the fear response kicks in on a physical level.
Hair stand up.
Yeah, like heart rate goes, right? And at this point, I'm like, okay, now I have to get myself into neutral somehow to clear this space. I'm like, okay, no, you can't be here. We're trying to sleep. No. So anyway, so then I cleared Mr. Ghost out of the way. And so he left. But it was sort of interesting because there was part of me that was afraid, because I physiologically was afraid. And there's part of me, the big S self. When you cultivate this has become really strong. There's part of me that's, it's good to be just fine. You work with this all the time. It's not a big deal. But it was interesting to have both at the same time. I was like, oh my goodness. But it was really, so I think I probably overcompensated with the clearing. I was like, I'm going to clear everything now. Yeah, that's fine. Good. It's like, and I should get a discount from the Airbnb for this. But anyway.
Oh, so, really?
Yeah, no, I feel like I should have.
You feel like you should.
To clear it.
Yeah.
So ghosts are a thing. When they show up physically, I don't particularly enjoy it. For some people who are really scared of ghosts, some of you have been a ghost and you're scared of being back in that state. So there are some of us who died, who didn't cross over properly or got stuck in that state of that lower realm and didn't know they were dead and didn't know how to cross over properly and were kind of lost. And some of us, that's why we're so afraid of ghosts, because we remember that state, okay? So there's the physiological, but I'm just saying for some of you, that's why you're so scared. Yeah. Now, the next day, after I'd cleared the house, Chris had parked, we were in two vehicles, because our friend was in one vehicle and we were in another. And Chris was, our friend was up early, and he was like, what was going on with your car? And we're like, what do you mean? He's like, because I would look out the window and the car would start flashing and beeping. And I was like, oh. And it's funny. Now, a lot of people would say, oh, is that a ghost? I thought you cleared it. So it wasn't actually ghosts. So there's another thing that you may not be aware of, and I call them mischievous spirits. In Hawaii, they call these minehune, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And there are different names for them in different places, and I'll call them mischievous sprites. Okay, so like in the places where the Celts are, you know, like the Irish, Scottish, even parts of France, right? Like the fairy world is real people. It is a frequency resonance. There are fairies. It exists. There's a world of fairies. So meaning there are fairies that are very light and bright. There are fairies that are more humanoid, that are more dense. They tend to be reclusive. The mischievous sprites can be part of the fairy family.
Wow, this is fascinating.
Yeah. And so they have a certain resonance. So these mischievous sprites can be a pain, actually, because they'll do things like they'll hide keys, they'll make your car flash, you'll have a note written to yourself to remember stuff, they'll steal the little note, they'll do like things like, they'll mess with you. They'll like move things around and you're gonna think it's a dead person. Not typically. Okay. They're different. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
They're different resonance.
Dead people don't really do stuff
No,
like that.
They'll do things habitually. So for example, if they always went to the kitchen cabinet door to open the thing to get their plate every day, they might leave the door open. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Sure.
So they might do that.
But
right?
not mess with you.
Not mess with you.
Yeah.
It's different.
The trickster energy.
Yes, exactly. So when you have a mischievous spirit, they will mess with you, okay? And they're mischievous. Like that's their point. And they like to play, but it's not really fun for the person who's receiving it.
Sure.
So they did that one day, and then the next day after that, I didn't really. When he said that, I don't know why I didn't register. I was like, okay. And we're thinking, okay, well, maybe it's Chris with his, I don't know, whatever he had in his pocket, and maybe it went off. And then at some other point, the coffee maker went off by itself. I was like, okay. So I'm like, okay, this is not a ghost. This is mischievous spirits. So finally, at some point, I was like, okay, enough. We're here right now. You can come back, but after we're gone, okay? So I just clear them out because they get kind of like freaked out when you, right? And my point is never to, when I'm moving things away, I'm clearing them out of that space. But for the mischievous spirits, they get, I don't know why, for these guys, I was just like, I felt like I didn't want to just completely remove them. They had something to finish in that space.
Oh, yeah. Like they have a purpose for
something
reason.
in that space.
Sure.
It's not always the case.
Yeah.
I can remove them completely. Okay. But it's also, for these guys, I didn't. For some reason that I can't explain to you yet.
Okay.
But I just know.
Yeah.
But anyway, they stopped after that. I was like, because if you don't, then I will clear you.
Yeah.
So please stop.
Please stop.
Okay.
Come back when we're gone.
Come back when you're gone. If not, I will clear you out of the space. And then they stopped. I was like, okay. Well. And then they, it's interesting. But they're a thing.
Wow.
Like, for real. They'll mess with you.
Are there some people that can't perceive these things at all, or? can everybody, it's just a matter of bringing your awareness to it? Or?
Yeah, so they reside on different levels of, like, so with the mischievous spirits, they tend to be around a certain like space, meaning they'll tend to be around a home, or like it's the land. It's typically somewhere on the land. Okay, that's where they'll kind of be. So your question was, can everyone perceive them? You mean when they're messing with you, or just general?
Just in general. Like, I don't think I've ever, this is all very new to me. Like,
yeah.
I've never seen a ghost. I know people who have.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever had any stuff like this.
Yeah.
I have more dreams that are really wild, and
yeah,
in my dreams they'll come like that, but not in my
really physical reality. Yeah, not everyone needs to. Not everyone experiences. That's the first time I ever physically encountered a ghost. Like, I work with dead people all the time.
Oh yeah.
I mean, that's what I do. I clear things. Yeah. That was the first time it showed up physically for me in that way. I was like, really?
Come on, guys.
We're trying to sleep.
Yeah.
The mischievous spirits, it's just because you haven't encountered them yet. Yeah.
Yeah, or maybe I have and I thought I just misplaced it.
Yeah, or people will be like, I made things up.
Yeah,
or did I
or
really
like,
put that
oh,
there?
I must have been like...
Yeah, whatever. Yeah. So sometimes we're just kind of oblivious, or we'll rationalize our way around it.
Sure, but the ghost thing, like, maybe some people don't ever see ghosts.
Yeah, it's very possible you never will see one.
Okay.
If you do, you'll have a physiological response.
Yeah,
your body will go into fear.
Wow.
Just like your response to it will be like heart racing. It just tends to happen that way. Yeah.
Okay.
Because you're in the presence of that death frequency, and that resonance doesn't feel good to us.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
And I'm sure whether you can see these things or not doesn't have any influence on how high you resonate.
No, exactly.
Okay.
Yes, exactly. Thank you for asking that.
Yeah.
Yes, being able to perceive these things has nothing to do with your frequency resonance. So this is an interesting topic, but it has nothing to do with awakening. Does that make sense?
Okay, I'm glad you said that.
So just because you can't perceive these things does not have any bearing on how high your frequency resonance is and where you are on your journey to awakening. And being able to perceive all these things doesn't mean you're awake.
Okay.
Okay. It just means that, just like the frequency of light, it means that you can access the frequency resonance that those things are. You're just aware of them. And so you don't need to be aware of them to be of a high frequency resonance at all.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And some people aren't, and they just never will experience it. And some people don't ever want to experience it, so they're great. You know what I mean? And some people are just like, hell no, I don't want to experience it. And they actually, right? They keep it outside of themselves.
Like, no way.
No way. So that happens too.
Okay.
But they are there.
Okay, and that's the point, just to let us know that they are there.
Yeah.
So ghosts, the trickster energy, fairies, what are like the lighter fairies like? Oh,
yeah. They're playful fun, but in a not mischievous way, right? So they're more, they're very, very, very light, and they have a very beautiful like laugh. Like they'll laugh like the kind of like, it sounds like a ripple, like they'll laugh kind of together. And they'll, if you're in certain places where the fairy energy is very strong, they can help. So for example, when we were in Ireland, one of the first times we were there, we were going to the hill of Tara in order to do something we weren't sure what. Okay, we just knew that we were being called there, and that that we were being called there for some reason. We didn't know we were going to do ceremony of some kind, but we didn't know why. This is before I did frequency work.
Okay.
So my friend who lives in Ireland, or lived in Ireland, sorry, said, would you like to see the fairy glen? And I was like, yeah, who doesn't want to see a fairy glen? Come on, right? So off we went into this. It was like this little opening right next to the highway. You would never notice it. It was next to a construction site, for goodness sake. And we dropped into this place. It was all wooded and mossy and green, and there was a stream running through it. It was beautiful. This huge wall of moss on the rocks. And you could feel them. And you could feel them around. Anyway, and at some point, when we were there, I asked them for help. I said, we're going to the Hill of Tara. We're going, we don't know why we're going, but we've been called to it. And I showed them who I was, like, you know, my heart space and all this sort of thing. I didn't let them enter me, but I just showed them my heart space. And I said, we would like your blessing. Okay, I don't know what we're going for. So anyway, the next day comes and we go to the Hill of Tara. And by the way, the Hill of Tara is massive. It's like kilometers. It's like rolling hill, there's a hill, like it's huge. Oh, wow. And we're like, we don't know where we're going or why we're here. And we pull up into this parking lot, it's packed, like hundreds of cars. And we're like, it's a huge tourist destination. Okay. So we get out, go pee and come back. And we're like, we don't know where we're going. All of a sudden, like out of nowhere, this little tiny man, he's probably like 5 foot tall or something, comes running over to us. He's like, hello there. We're like, hi. He looks like a little fairy. He's like a wee man, like a wee little man. And he goes, would you like to be taken to the heart chakra of the Hill of Tara? Because my friend knows where it is. Would you like to go? We're like,
yes.
Yeah, we would.
Yes, we would. That is perfect.
And he took us.
Oh my gosh.
To the, like, his friend took us. He wasn't talking to anyone else. They were having biscuits and tea in the van. And it was very Irish. And then he took us and we walked like literally for about 1.5 kilometers. And he took us to this one spot. We would never in a million years have found this spot. He's like, okay, here it is. And we had this whole, and I won't go into the whole story now, but this whole thing devolved, but he was like, he had been waiting for us. He's like, okay, so you're meant to be doing ceremony here. You and your friend, she like, meaning, because it was a woman that I was with, he's like, they've been waiting for you to do ceremony over there. We'll just wait for you here. He didn't tell us anything about what it was. He's like, just go over there and you'll figure it out. And I was just like, who are you? But he didn't. What we were doing was we were clearing, it turned out that we were clearing a whole bunch of women who had been killed in that area.
Wow.
And we were helping them move them into pure soul. But he didn't tell us that before we went over there.
And this was before you were doing frequency work?
Yeah.
So how did you know what to do?
I followed.
Got it. That's the theme here.
Followed. But the fairies are all I'm saying is, all this magic happened. Like what? You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So the fairies are like a real frequency. Wow. They're a little package of frequencies. They are very different. They're a thing. As well, things that are like darker are things like entities, which we've talked about before.
Yeah.
Right? Those are unseen, but definitely there. There are definitely alien frequencies. Yep, we've talked about that before. Yeah. Aliens are definitely a thing. They're not all the same, just like with people, we're not all the same. Aliens are like, that's such a huge term, right? It's like all these different... Yeah, you have that
image in your head of like the very typical on the spaceship.
Yeah. I'm like, that's one kind of alien being.
Yeah.
There's so many kinds. They're just not from here. So they all have different frequencies. They're different. Some are here to help. Some are here to not help and actually destroy. Whatever it is, they're very different. So they all exist.
Now I'm remembering, oh my God, how could I forget? I have had an experience with the cockroach energy.
Yeah.
There was a time where, yeah, you're right, a visceral response. So I'm jumping all around. So basically I could feel, I could sense something.
Yeah.
Was like every hair sticking up, right? Kind of vibe. And it was always at night.
Yeah.
And it would like freak me out. And then it happened to me for like 2 weeks. I don't know why. And I was seeing cockroaches everywhere.
Yeah.
And I know we have cockroaches in Hawaii, but it was like, no. It was like something was following me.
Yeah.
And just me.
Yeah.
No one else.
Yeah.
I was just like, Yeah, so that's a thing.
Yeah, that's actually a thing. And that, for you, that was actually an alien frequency.
An alien frequency.
Yeah.
Oh, and you had told me, actually, and so maybe listeners, this might help calm any nerves, but as you're kind of doing the work and getting brighter, you might get kind of attacked by something.
Yeah, or things will be attracted to you and see if they can come into your space.
Right.
Because if you're not holding your space and you're at a very high resonance, you're very valuable on the food chain of things that need to feed off bioenergy because your resonance is high. It's kind of like, are you going to eat this really delicious, nutrient-dense kale salad versus a bag of potato chips? There's nothing wrong with a bag of potato chips, but from a nutrient standpoint, very low. Right? So if you're going to eat the same thing, you kind of want the kale salad because you're probably going to get more nutrients out of it, right? So as your frequency resonance rises, you're kind of like the kale salad, right? So, and what they'll do is they'll press in to see if they can come into your space, if you can hold it. Sometimes those things, I'm going to say something probably controversial, sometimes those things are there for you to strengthen, to be like, I don't like this, I need to be stronger, I'm going to push you away from me. So, but here's the thing, they're teaching you how to be stronger, but if you're foolish enough to let them in, they'll take advantage of it. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, so it's like fair game. It's like if you can hold your space, great, I'll teach you how to be stronger. But if you're a sucker and you're going to let me in, then I'm in, and now we have a problem. Yeah?
Yeah. Okay, wow. So these are things to be aware of.
Yeah, totally.
I like the helper ones better.
Yeah. The other thing, too, that I just want to remind people is, the darkness is kind of sneaky sometimes. It's not going to be like, hello, little girl. I am the darkness.
Come with me.
I mean, they'll show up as like, a lot of people say, like, do you work with guides? I'm like, no. Really, if your connection is with pure source, follow that. Okay? Yourself, higher self, pure source. If you have a guide, just be really sure that it's what it appears to be. Because the darkness sometimes will appear to be light. So they'll cloak themselves in brightness.
Oh,
and
boy.
what you'll do is you'll start to open your heart space and then whoop, it'll be right in there.
Whoa.
So you have to be really careful. So what you need to do always, if something appears to you, I don't care how bright and loving and amazing it looks, you ask it, are you aligned with pure source? Okay? And the darkness, actually, if it is dark, will do something. It will change shape. It will diminish. It will show itself. It will, you know what I mean? It can't really get around that. It can't say that it is aligned with pure source if it's not.
Oh.
So it will, do you see what I'm saying? It will do something.
And
so
then you'll know.
Then you'll know. But always ask. Because, again, like, it'll take advantage. Like, if you're smart enough to hold your space, that's fine. But if you aren't being aware, then they'll take advantage of it. So just have some awareness.
That's
right?
a really good tip.
It doesn't matter how bright, how shiny, how loving, how whatever it is. I'm the ascended master of whatever. That's lovely.
Are you aligned?
Are you aligned with pure source?
Okay. Cool. And I think you've also said this in the past. Like, be sure to notice if you're giving your power away. Like, especially with guides and angels, a lot of people work with those things. So. Really, you had said it should only be your higher self.
Yeah, and also see if it resonates with you. So people go to different people who work with these different, they claim that they're channeling certain things, okay? Like they're channeling the angels, or they're channeling Mary Magdalene, or they're channeling whatever, something good. Okay, so be like, don't give your power away and just be like, oh, the Archangel Gabriel told them that, or my guides are telling me, through this person, are telling me something. Check to see if it resonates with you, okay? Just check yourself. Like, is this actually true for you? Does it really seem like a good idea to you? You know what I mean? Because you don't know what they're channeling necessarily, right? And it's shocking to me sometimes, because even people sometimes who start frequency work, you know, they'll meet somebody, because again, when you're bright, you start to attract things that aren't so bright. And so I had this client. He had done a number of sessions, and somehow he found this woman who was supposedly channeling some archangel. He goes to see her. She tells him some cool stuff, then starts to ask him for more and more money, and her life is falling apart. Like, her life is kind of chaotic. And then when he has a session with her, she tells him more about her life and how it's falling apart, and it's getting kind of terrible. Like, she's kind of like overstepping like the boundary of like what a professional practitioner. Yeah. And she starts asking him for more money, and he's like, it's starting to feel a little weird. And I'm thinking to myself, because he handed his power to her, she must know better. So he's seeing all of her humanness, her mess, that's maybe not what it seems to be. But because he's given her his power, he's not assessing, is this person what they seem? Is what they're, like, what I'm receiving for them clear? You know what I mean? So my point is to check, to see, like, look at their lives. Like, one good indication is if you're working with somebody who works in this realm, how are their lives? Like, are their relationships good? Are they physically healthy? Do they have abundance? Like, how sorted are they? Is there a lot of drama around them or not?
That's a good
That's a good, yeah. So if you look at their physical life and it's a mess, chances are...
Red flag.
Red flag.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, what about giving your power away, like, your own personal angels or guides? Like, I know some people who are practitioners of different kinds, and they'll call in their stones, or their stuff, like all these tools. Yeah. I just wonder, like, is that giving your power away to these other things? Well, or is that really helpful?
I think for some people, for some people it's very helpful. My feeling is that if your frequency resonance is high enough, and because I've had the good fortune of journeying with different shamans, okay, who are powerful, and they will tell you those objects are not relevant. Like, the ceremony it's with them. Yeah. You know, it's with them and their connection to whatever they call, you know, the one infinite. They all have different names for it, you know? Yeah. And so anybody who's really powerful will tell you, you don't need the objects. Like, or even a very ritualized ceremony, because it's coming, they're in flow, right? They're in response to what is. Yeah. So the most powerful ceremony is the one that's done in response, right? Like, you're in the moment in response to whatever is unfolding, and you are surrendered to that moment, right? And they know that they are following. That's the most powerful kind of ceremony. You know, it's not the, do you see what I'm saying? People get caught up in the ritual, in the things, the objects, the placement.
This particular stone and this, no.
It's, or that particular incantation, or that whatever, it's not important.
Or that guide, or this guide.
Yeah. You you don't really need it.
Okay, that's what I thought.
That's my feeling. And the higher in resonance you go, you start to surrender more into like perhaps not knowing, right? So the guides can be helpful because, in a way, because some people need the certainty of like, this is what is being told.
Yeah.
Okay. And it always depends on the frequency resonance of the person, right? So please know, there's some people who are very high in frequency resonance who are like, they don't have a guide, but they'll pick up on certain things around you. For example, they don't always call in the same people, but they're high enough in resonance they can pick up around you what's happening. Does that make sense? That's a little bit different.
Yeah.
So really just as you become higher in frequency resonance yourself and your own distortion patterns fall away, always ask when you're working with someone, are they aligned with pure source? And then check, what are they telling me? Does it feel resonant with me? Am I handing them my power? Am I considering what they're telling me? You know, it's funny, like people will blindly give away your power, so it's important to not do that, especially when you're dealing in the realm of the unseen.
Yeah.
Right? Because how do you know? Right? How do you know?
Yeah.
And all those things do exist. Like dragons are a thing. They have their own frequency. The angels have their own frequency. These are not made up things. They exist.
Wow.
Now, whether or not you're aware of them is another thing, but they're there as frequency resonances. And if the more you kind of, and again, being aware of them isn't required for the awakening process, which is the key thing.
Yeah.
Okay, so just please know that that's really the thing. This is like the amazing, like variety. Like, it's like flowers, you know, like flowers of all these different colors and textures. Like
you're just letting us know, hey, did you know that there's this flower?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But they're not required in order for you to ascend.
Okay, that's good to know. And since the topic of the unseen is so vast and so kind of obscure for a lot of people, can people ask questions to you? Like, do you take questions?
Yeah, so if you have questions about this, you can write into info@, and then we can always do a podcast if there's enough questions on the same topic.
Oh, great.
And I'll go deeper into something.
Okay, cool.
But yeah, there's a whole realm of, I mean, of course, right? Humans only have like this tiny glimpse of like, you know, what we were able to perceive for so long. And, you know, you had to journey or go see medicine people or whatever to access those realms or take something in order to access. And now as our frequency resonance is rising, we're able to, some of us, access different realms because we're stable enough, we're strong enough, so we can access different space-time realities. Because all those things are just frequency resonances that you have to be sensitive enough to feel them. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
To be aware of them because they resonate at a different rate than we do. So if there are some of us, and there are more and more, who will start to be able to perceive them. And if you're not scared of them and you know what they are, it becomes easier, right?
Yeah,
you're just like,
totally.
okay, that exists. Now, here's the thing. One last thing about the unseen. So please remember that you have dominion over your body unless you give it away, okay? Because you're occupying it. So meaning, if something scary shows up for you, okay, I'm gonna give you 3 steps, okay? So you become aware of your body, like immediately. You become aware. Now, probably your heart's pounding in your chest and you feel like you're freaking out, so probably you're aware of your body.
Yeah, you're probably right there in your body, yeah.
You're like, oh my God, this is happening. So you're aware of your body. Okay. You're going to be aware of your connection to pure source. That will trump just about anything, okay? Because you are connected to the divine. Divine is part of you. So you're like, this like basically trumps everything else. So you're aware of your body. You're aware of your connection to pure source. If you can become aware of your spirit body. If you have the wherewithal, if you're freaking out, it might be harder. Okay. But even if you do steps 1 and 2, remember that gives you authority over your body, okay? And it gives you, for most of you, some of you have so much, there's a few that have a lot of darkness and it's hard for you to mitigate that because you don't have enough leverage. But for the vast majority of people, that's enough to be like, no, I'm here in my body. I'm connected to pure source. Get out, okay? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
There's some of you who are more challenged with that. You have a lot more darkness around you. You probably need more help in very specific ways. But that's not the majority. That's a very small percentage, but that's there. But just to remember, those 2 steps will really help you to stay present in the body, in the present moment of space-time, connected to pure source, and that way nothing can come in. Yeah. So.
I feel like you could even play the the GFC where you have people push up.
Yeah.
I'm blanking on what that's called right now, but
the confirming the removal.
Yeah, couldn't you do that?
Yeah,
maybe?
You could do that
just to give a little support if you feel trapped or something.
Yeah, you can do the confirm removal, and it's the same. You can also do the morning meditation, setting the tone of the day, because that also pushes things out that are not serving you.
Great.
So those are 2 tools as well.
Okay, thank you. Very informative. Very interesting topic.
Yeah.
Thanks, Karen.
Thank you.
So we're about to start the group frequency calibration, where we actually do the frequency work and where change is catalyzed. To get to the GFC, click on the square that'll appear to the right or the link in the description below. Because I'm working on frequency level, GFCs are not like regular meditations. Many people go into a somewhat altered state, so please don't drive while listening to this. It's time to bring in a new experience, a new consciousness, and a new world. Let's rise together.